The night didn't break with a shout. It slipped a blade between the hours and waited for me to notice. My name is Lena Hawthorne. I'm 32 years old, and I make a living managing numbers that behave, budgets, forecasts, tidy columns that add up when people do not. On a Thursday at 7:42 p.m., I stood in my kitchen while the microwave breathed over a bowl of leftover curry, its plastic lid rising and settling like a tired lung. My phone lit the counter. A group chat named Family glowed at the top, polite as a doorbell. "We've discussed it," the message read, "and we think it's best if you step away for now. Tessa needs space. We all do." The words were neat, evenly spaced, the kind that pretend to be reasonable so you'll feel unreasonable for bleeding. Beneath it, Aunt Sylvia tapped her approval like a notary stamp, a simple thumbs up, an emoji to amputate a daughter. I read the sentence 3 times, waiting for a verb to twitch and change its mind. The microwave beeped, steam fogged the cabinet door. No one called me by name in the text, no one said love. Just step away, like I was an item from a shelf that had started to collect dust. I did not ask who we was. I did not ask what space meant, or how long it takes to exile a person who paid your co-pays and kept your lights from blinking out. My thumb hovered, then settled. "Understood," I typed. "I'll respect that, and step away from the family fund, too." I pressed send. The message left clean, without a stutter. For a moment the room felt thinner, as if the air itself had taken 2 steps back. I set the curry in the sink and ran the tap until the steam fled the glass. Water roaring just loud enough to drown the part of me trained to beg for context. My phone pulsed again. Adrian, the only person who notices when my sentences forget their exclamation points. "You okay?" he wrote. "Family stuff," I answered. "I'll call later." He sent back a heart I stared at until it blurred. The apartment returned to quiet, the kind that asks what happens next. "Here's where I want you with me." The kitchen light humming, the night waiting at the window, the single thought circling my head like a slow siren. If they want space, I can measure it. Tell me where you're watching from right now and drop it in the comments. I want to know the rooms you're standing in as I open the next door. I carried the phone to my desk and opened the laptop. The screen rose like a curtain, and behind it waited the quiet machinery I knew better than most people know their own faces. Accounts, portals, tabs with names that sound like responsibility, utilities, insurance, pharmacy, wireless, auto. I signed into the bank first. The dashboard blinked awake, balances breathing steady, the way a sleeping animal looks harmless because it's still. The family fund sat there under its harmless nickname, the one we'd chosen on a sunny afternoon to make obligation feel like teamwork. I clicked into payments. A column of green toggles stared back: rent buffer, insulin copays, therapy, car insurance, the temporary phone plan that had been temporary since winter. I started at the top. Rent buffer, off. The toggle slid from confident green to a tired gray. A small window asked if I was sure. I was. Accept. Insulin copays, off. The system prompted me to save a new payer. I closed the prompt and moved on. Therapy, off. A note field blinked, asking for a reason. I typed none and kept going. Car insurance, off. The policy number still carried my name, braided through to lower their premium. I flagged it to remove later and slid the toggle anyway. Off. Wireless, off. The line item still wore the promise they'd resume in March. March had come and left. Off. The credit card labeled gas only sat a little lower in the list, as if hiding. I opened its statement and scrolled until the heat rose in my face. Summer, a patio heater from a big box store, and a handful of late-night convenience runs. Gas only, I said out loud, because sometimes saying it helps you believe you're not imagining. I clicked Remove Authorized User, me, and set alerts to send to their email, not mine, pharmacy portal next. I backed out my information where it had been tucked into profiles for emergencies. I removed auto refill ties to the fund, one by one. The site tried to sell me reminders. I didn't need reminders. I needed absence. Auto club, car maintenance, roadside add-ons someone had signed up for during a flat tire panic. Off, off, off. The interface word polite apologies I didn't read. At each prompt that asked for a contact, I placed theirs. The system offered to split payments between cards. I declined. Split was how this started. I downloaded final statements as I went, stacking them inside a new folder on my desktop, Hawthorne Ledger. The name looked severe in the bright white of the window. I dragged it left, lined it up with the edge of the screen, and kept feeding it. PDFs, receipts, screenshots of the green turned gray. Each file got a name, date first, so the history would behave itself. Utilities lived on a separate portal with a cheerful logo. Electricity, auto pay off, gas, off, water, off. A pop-up warned interruption for non-payment. It wasn't a threat to me anymore, just a sentence about cause and effect. I took a breath and hit accept. Insurance took longer. Bundles have a way of knitting everything together so that removing one stitch feels like cutting a net. I unhooked my name from household policies where it didn't belong, traced it through a rented storage unit that had somehow learned my address, then filed a request to separate effective immediately. A PDF confirmation arrived in my inbox like a small metal click. I saved it to the ledger. I checked the account beneficiaries, there were none, then the notifications, then the auto transfers that slipped in at midnight on the 14th. Off, off, off. The green dots dwindled until they were only punctuation, 2 stubborn items tied to an ancient billing profile. I updated that too. The last piece was the account itself. I set the statements to download one final time and watched the progress bar crawl. The apartment had gone quiet enough to hear the kitchen light hum. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's door eased shut, and the sound felt like permission. When the downloads finished, I zipped the folder and copied it to a drive in my desk. The bank flashed a polite banner at the top. "We're here to help you manage your goals." It had been years since the word goal applied to anything in that portal. I navigated to close or convert and read the fine print with the patience of someone who has paid attention for too long. Fees, reconciliations, timelines. I met each condition. I ticked each box. "Are you sure you want to close this account?" The button waited. My hands were steady. I clicked yes, typed my name in the field that asked me to own my choice, and pressed submit. For a second, nothing moved. Then the page refreshed, and the fund was gone. The room felt wider, not lighter exactly, but truer, as if some misaligned weight had slid back into place. Something under my ribs unhooked. I closed the laptop. The night stayed where it was, outside and honest. Sometime after midnight, the apartment cooled, and the quiet learned my name. I drifted on top of the covers, clothes still on, the closed laptop a dark square on the desk. At 3:11 a.m., my phone began to buzz as if someone had dropped it into a hive. One call, then 2, then a climb that didn't stop. The screen pulsed against the ceiling in soft waves, lighting the room like a slow ambulance. I didn't answer. The first ring always teaches the second how to behave. By 3:20, there were a dozen. By 3:40, they stacked too fast to read. I flipped the phone face down and lay on my back, watching the light spill around the edges. Somewhere above me, the neighbor's pipes sighed. The buzzing eased, rearmed, returned harder. The sound felt mechanical, as if a machine had woken to find its cord severed and couldn't understand why the lights wouldn't obey. When it paused, voicemails filled the space it left. The first was my father. "Lena, it's Dad. What happened?" The bank pinged my email. "Something about interrupted transfers. Call me back." He tried for calm and landed on a voice I recognized from holidays when the turkey burned. The second was my mother, thinner than usual. Honey, I'm sure this is a mistake. We were just giving Tessa a little room. The pharmacy, well, call me please, I'm shaking. Then Tessa, raw and bright. You can't just do that. My rent's due on Friday. Are you trying to punish me? This is cruel. She called again 3 minutes later. You've always made everything about control. You don't understand recovery. Aunt Sylvia left a message that sounded like a smile with teeth. This isn't proportional, dear. Families need grace. Uncle Greg managed a single sentence, clipped and disappointed. Not how we handle things. Cousin Nora texted a question mark, then another. Then are you awake? As if a softer key might unlock the same door. I let them pile. The night grew thinner and the ceiling turned into ordinary plaster again. Between rings, the refrigerator clicked on and poured its small, faithful hum into the room. When the phone stopped vibrating, I turned it over. 89 missed calls by sunrise. The counter looked like a dare. I scrolled through the voicemail transcriptions without pressing play. Each one carried a different angle on the same plea. Fix this. Fix this was the chorus we'd been singing for years. I tapped into the family chat where the message had started and typed the only sentence that still belonged to me. I'm honoring your decision. I set the phone down and let my eyes close for a minute, not to sleep, but to remember that stillness wasn't the same thing as guilt. When I sat up, the windows were the color of metal, then milk. I went to the kitchen and put water on for coffee. The kettle took its time. Heat is patient when it knows where it's going. Steam braided into the air. I kept my hands around the mug until they believed it. More calls came after 8. Dad again, his bile turned to worry. The mortgage notice bounced. The bank flagged everything. Are you okay? Why would you just call me? Mom. The prescriptions, Lena. I don't know what to do. Tessa didn't leave voicemails anymore. She texted from numbers I didn't recognize, the words fierce and short. I read them all and answered none. Adrian's name slid across the screen at 10:30. I took that one. So, he said, soft, like a hand over a light. Space, huh? It startled me when I laughed. Turns out it includes my bank login, I said. We sat inside the joke until it stopped biting. Do you want me to come over? He asked. I looked at the closed laptop on the desk, the morning opening itself like a blank tab. Not yet, I said. I've got some work. We said we'd talk later. When the call ended, the apartment held still. The phone stayed on the table, screen down, a quiet object again. I rinsed the cup, wiped the counter, and pulled the chair to the desk. If they wanted space, I would give it shape. I opened the laptop and let the day arrange itself into rows and columns. Coffee beside the trackpad, spine straight, the way you sit when you mean it. Excel blinked up like a courtroom with no judge, just facts waiting their turn. I pulled up the first workbook and checked the conditional formatting I'd built months ago. Greens for on time, amber for watch this, red for the places that always pretended to be emergencies. The family accounts I'd been copied on lived in separate tabs, each one a habit with a password. I uncoupled them methodically. Pharmacy, gas, auto insurance, a roadside plan someone thought was free. On the pharmacy portal, my name had been smuggled into backup payer during a night when trembling meant urgency. I deleted it, confirmed twice, and took a screenshot for my records. Save to Hawthorne Ledger. On the gas-only card, I verified that my login no longer bridged their account to mine. I removed my email from alerts that had slowly migrated over during a winter of "could you just?" Statement review was a small, private audit. Fuel, then a patio heater in July that had insisted it was necessity when it was weather. I labeled the PDF and slid it into the ledger. Auto insurance had a talent for pretending we were all a bundle. Every 6 months, I was added back for a discount that shaved pennies off their premium and put liability on my back. I filed a written request to separate and set a repeating calendar reminder to check again in 6 months, the way you tend a fence after the wind. At 8:02 a.m., my mother called. I let it go to voicemail and listened while I worked. Honey, this is not what we meant. We were just giving you space for Tessa. You didn't have to. The prescriptions. The message clipped itself mid-sentence and began again with a breath I recognized from the year we learned about co-pays. I kept my eyes on the screen and typed a note to myself on a small, stern line at the top of the sheet. No more emergency decisions without paperwork. I underlined it once. By 9:17, Tessa came through from two numbers I didn't have saved. You knew I needed that payment. Why would you do this? Then the word cruel, repeated as if repetition could build a case. I read it all and placed the phone face down. The cells in front of me didn't ask for feelings, they asked for accuracy. I reconciled the last two accounts I'd been temporarily added to and removed my access. A utility portal tried to route me back in with a friendly nudge. I declined. A banner flashed on the corner of the laptop. New device login attempt. Bank secure portal. It was a brand I knew, wrapped in a tone I didn't. I clicked through, saw the unfamiliar device fingerprint nudging the lock, and denied it without thinking. Then I thanked the version of myself who had begun keeping backups 2 Christmases ago, the night a tire tantrum taught me to file like a person with teeth. At 10:30, Adrian called. I answered and heard the steadiness I've learned to trust. So, he said, space. The coffee had cooled but held its shape in my mouth. Apparently it includes my bank, I said. He let the line stay gentle. You want me to come over? I looked at the list of portals still open, a field of tabs like fence posts. Not yet, I said. I'm making a list. A small human thing slipped in before we hung up. Didn't your ex, Maya, move into bank compliance? I asked it like I was reading off a recipe. He hesitated, then, yeah, why? No reason, I said. Just adding names to the right columns. After the call, I returned to the ledger. I removed my name from the auto club, closed a dormant profile that had learned my billing address without asking, exported the month's end statements, and reconciled totals until the sheet breathed evenly. When everything balanced, I sat back and let the quiet check my work. The file name glowed at the top, Hawthorne Ledger, XLSX. I saved, then saved again to a drive that lived separate from everything else. The apartment held still, like a room that knows a door has locked. Outside, the day widened. Inside, the numbers behaved. By early evening, a calendar alert nudged the corner of my screen. Family check-in, 7:00 p.m. I knew what it was before I opened the link, the kind of meeting that calls itself a conversation and arrives like a verdict. I straightened the stack of papers beside the laptop, printouts with neat tabs, and clicked join. Faces bloomed across the grid. My mother in the living room with the good lamp, my father standing behind her shoulder, arms folded like he could hold the house up by posture. Tessa close to her camera, eyes red and restless. Aunt Sylvia centered and polished, a string of pearls that photographed well. Uncle Greg framed by a home office he never used. Cousin Nora half-lit, peacemaker smile already arranged. Mom spoke first. Lena, sweetheart, we just want to clear the air. Her tones smoothed the edges like furniture polish. Dad cut in. You overreacted. You could have talked to us before you pulled the plug. Tessa made a sound that could have been a laugh or a sob. You love control, don't you? You made everything about money. I let the noise settle. I didn't cancel it, I said evenly. I closed it. It was in my name, my routing, my liability. Aunt Sylvia lifted her chin. Families need grace. You've been calling my money Grace for 5 years, I said. Tonight it has its real name. I clicked share screen. The ledger filled their monitors and measured rows. Dates, memos, amounts, notes in the margin where promises lived and went thin. Under the title, Hawthorne Ledger, GLSX. The first column scrolled. Rent buffer, insulin copays, therapy sessions, tires and tow charges, overdraft cushions, the patio heater that tried to pass as gas. Numbers lined up like a confession that didn't need witnesses. Cousin Nora whispered, "Wow," then covered her mouth as if the word had escaped wrong. Mom leaned closer to read her own name beside 12 months of refills. Dad's face drained of color the way paper does when it's been left in sun. Tessa shook her head. "You didn't have to humiliate us." "I didn't," I said. "I protected all of us until it was clear I was the only one required to." I toggled to the next tab. What if? The total glowed at the top like a siren that had learned manners. 187,421. Dad stepped out of frame, then back, as if there were a safer angle to stand in. "We trusted you, Lena." "You trusted me to pay," I said. "That's different." I ended the share and lifted the stack of papers into view. Confirmations from the bank, letters to revoke authorizations, notices to separate insurance and utilities, a form dissolving any ties to a family trust I hadn't agreed to join. All joint authorizations are removed, shared cards closed, utilities unbundled. I've also filed to dissolve any legal connection between me and your accounts. Mom's breath snagged. "You wouldn't." "I already did." Uncle Greg spoke for the first time. "This isn't how we handle things." "It's how I handle liability that carries my name," I said. Dad tried to smile, but it looked like a wince. "You didn't have to make it legal." "Yes," I said, voice steady. "I did. Love without boundaries becomes debt." Silence took the call by the throat. In the small square where Tessa sat, tears vanished and something sharper replaced them. "You think money makes you better?" "No," I said, "but it's the only reason you ever called." A beat held. The lamp behind my mother warmed the edge of her hair. Aunt Sylvia's pearls caught a light and flashed like a camera. No one found the next line of the script. I felt the room in my apartment, its air, its width, its honest quiet, and knew we were done. "I have nothing else to add," I said. I clicked leave meeting. The grid vanished. The screen returned to my reflection, unfamiliar and calm, the sound around me deep and clean. The apartment was still, the kind of quiet that makes your breath sound like a clock. My inbox chimed. No subject line, just an address I didn't recognize. The body said nothing. There was an attachment. Hawthorne Family Wellness LLC, Tax ID PDF. I clicked. Pages opened like a trap. My name sat at the top of a form I had never seen, printed neat enough to pass any glance. A business I didn't register. A loan application for $80,000. A tax ID tied to the fund I had closed. My signature, copied and angled just wrong, like a smile that never touched the eyes. Farther down, co-signers, Martin Hawthorne and Elaine Hawthorne, my parents. I scrolled again, slower. Dates from this week, an address that used to be mine because I had once made it convenient. A phone number I didn't use anymore, the old one that still lives in hospital intake forms and pharmacy portals. I read each line until the meaning stopped fighting back. I called the bank. A woman named Carmen answered. She moved like a person who had done this before. I gave her the loan number printed in the corner of the PDF and my information. There was a pause, the kind that means a screen has turned red. "Yes, Ms. Hawthorne," she said carefully. "I see the application. It's flagged as suspicious. We were waiting to verify with you. Is it still active?" "It's frozen now, but if it had cleared, the debt would be yours." The bank's hold music was some old piano loop while she placed notes on the file and read me steps I already knew. Fraud packet, temporary freeze, identity protection. When the call ended, I stared at the wall and felt nothing dramatic, just a hard click inside the chest where trust used to sit. I texted Daniel, "Got something I need to check." "Quick call?" He called back before I set the phone down. I told him everything. The no-subject email, the forged signature, the loan amount. He went quiet, not with judgment, but with math. Maya still works in compliance, he said. I can ask, off the record, whether anything like this hit their intake. Only if you're comfortable, I said. Always. We hung up. While I waited, I opened a new folder on my desktop. Fraud-proof Hawthorne. I pulled the PDF into it, then screen captured the email headers and saved the raw message. I added the ledger totals, the portal screenshots, the call log from 3:11 a.m. I backed the folder to a small flash drive I keep in a mug behind my pens, then mirrored it to cloud storage and labeled it plain. I made a third copy to leave with Daniel. My phone buzzed. Daniel again. Maya checked, he said. She can't share files, but she confirmed an app with that name came through and failed verification after the account it pointed to was found closed. If the fund hadn't been shut, it would have cleared the preliminary screen. We stayed on the line without speaking for a breath or two. It wasn't shock anymore. It was geometry. This is what happens when you train people to treat you like infrastructure. When the bridge closes, they try to build a new one with your name. I thanked him. After the call, I filled out the bank's fraud paperwork. I filed a police report online and printed the confirmation page. I submitted a form to the tax authority, flagged the tax ID, and requested an alert on my credit. Each window asked for facts, not feelings. I gave it what it needed. By late afternoon, the folder had grown heavy with proof. I zipped it and named it once more, simple and final, proof, identity theft, Hawthorne. I placed the flash drive in a small envelope with a date across the seal. I set it in my desk and shut the drawer. The house across the alley turned on a lamp. The square of light found my floor and laid there like a quiet witness. I closed the laptop. The room held. The quiet felt earned. 2 days later, my phone rang with a name I hadn't seen in years. Victor Hawthorne, my father's older brother. The one who stopped coming to Thanksgiving without a fight. Just an absence you could set a place for and never fill. I let it ring, then picked up. I heard, he said. His voice was gravel-worn smooth. You okay? I'm fine, I said, and felt how true it sounded. How'd you hear? Elaine called my ex-wife by mistake, he said. She thinks I'm still at that number. Word travels when the well goes dry. He didn't add sympathy and syrup. He didn't ask me to reconsider. He asked for the facts. I told him, the group chat, the switch off, the Zoom, the forged loan, the reports. He didn't make a sound until I finished. You're not the first, he said finally. You're just the first one who shut the faucet off. The room seemed to lean toward the phone. They did this to you? In the 90s, he said. Different tools, same choreography. I wasn't as organized. Thought I could outgive the whole. I moved to another state to survive paying bills with my blood. He laughed once, without teeth. I told your father back then, every generation has one who breaks the pattern. Looks like it's you. I sat with that, a sentence I didn't know I'd been waiting for. Did they ever apologize? No, he said, but they learned to look elsewhere. Parasites call it love until you stop feeding them. He paused. If you need a witness, I'll be one. Save my number. I did. We said goodbye like decent neighbors, not family. When the call ended, the apartment pressed close and warm, like a coat you finally bought in your size. Tessa tried again from a new number, an opening line that started with I get it and bent hard into but. I blocked it. Another number, a breathy voice that could have been her or not. Block. A text from Mom, a photo of a pill bottle, and a caption that said just this once. I didn't answer. Dad sent a practical command dressed as concern. We need to fix this before the mortgage hits. I put the phone face down. By night, the calls thinned, then stopped. The quiet didn't rush in. It arrived on foot and sat down. I slept without dreaming. In the morning, I woke at the hour I used to reserve for panic and found there was nothing left to manage but coffee and the day. I checked my accounts. Clean, no new attempts. The bank's alerts read like a well-made gate that had remembered how to latch. I opened the proof folder, reviewed the timestamps, and printed a short inventory with a date and my initials. I sealed a copy with the flash drive in an envelope and slid it into the freezer. Cold keeps some things honest. I called the precinct to add a note to the report. The officer on the line had the voice of a person who answers strangers at their worst and keeps them steady. "It happens more than you think," he said, "especially with family." He told me to call if anything new arrived. I thanked him and hung up. The day moved in simple errands. Laundry. A new deadbolt I scheduled for Friday. I changed the passwords that weren't broken just because I could. I walked to the corner store and picked up stamps for the notices I still preferred to mail. When I came back, a square of sun had found the floor where my desk chair throws its shadow. I stood in it like a person meant to be here. That evening, Uncle Victor texted a line without decoration. "Proud of you." It didn't feel like a trophy. It felt like a door closing softly behind me, a room sealing up from weather. I put the phone down and sat on the couch with a book. Somewhere, a city siren threaded itself through the block and faded. The air didn't tighten. The quiet didn't ask for money. For the first time in years, I could tell what stillness was made of. It didn't weigh anything. It simply held. A year is a long time when it belongs to you. I moved across a river and into a small apartment with tall windows and a floor that sings when you cross it barefoot. Work found its groove. Money behaved. Mornings were ordinary in a way I'd forgotten. Coffee, a run along the waterfront, the good ache of coming back to a place that expects nothing from you but your key. Daniel and I learned the shape of quiet evenings. We cooked more than we ordered. He teased my folders, color-coded down to the month, then started checking his own savings with a respect that looked a little like devotion. On Sundays, we walked to the park and sat with a paperback passed between us, the pages bending into the same crease. We didn't rush anything. The future could wait on the counter while we finished our tea. Every so often, a message found me like a tide that had misread the moon. Cousin Nora sent a soft hello, a photo of a houseplant she almost kept alive, a question about whether I was well. I answered once, brief and true. "I'm good, hope you are." Tessa sent a text that didn't use a new number. It said I'm in therapy. It said I'm sorry. It included a photo of a small, clean apartment, 2 plates stacked in a dish rack, a cheap rug, the square of a mattress without a headboard. I didn't reply. I didn't block her either. That was my portion of grace. I let it sit. On Christmas Eve, my inbox held a message from my mother. Subject: Family still means something. 3 faces sat by a tree, the lights a little too bright, the gifts unopened, the smile lines pulled tight. "We miss you. Please come home." There was no apology, only a net made of ribbon. I closed the email and kept the night. Spring leaned into summer. I saw Aunt Sylvia outside a bakery, same scarf, same perfume, a paper bag hugged to her chest. "Lena," she said, eyes scanning for damage. "You look different." "I am," I said. She tilted her head. "You could have handled it privately." I smiled without heat. "I did. You just didn't like the result." She pressed the bag closer and walked off like she was carrying evidence. I didn't watch her go. Uncle Victor called sometimes. We talked about small things, tires that lasted longer than they should, a diner that still poured coffee like it meant it. He never asked for the ledger. He didn't need the proof to believe me. "Every generation has one," he said once, "who breaks the pattern. The others will call it betrayal until they find their feet." We let the words sit between us, 2 people who had learned how to stand. One night, I scrolled back through the archived thread I never deleted. "We think it's best if you step away for now." The sentence glowed like a fossil, the past preserved in the shape it chose. I read it once and closed the app, not bitter, not triumphant, free. This is what I know now. Boundaries aren't revenge, they're instructions, how to love me correctly or not at all. When the old guilt tugs at my sleeve, I don't look back. I look around at the ordinary mercy of my own life, the neat bills with my name on them, the keys that open only my doors, the person who calls because he wants to, not because he needs a wire by Friday. I didn't lose a family. I stopped financing a system. And in the quiet that followed, the world kept turning, and I kept it.